So the point of this exercise is to demonstrate how a professional writer includes particular lines to service the story. With amateurs are those writers who are not fully conscious of the role parts are playing to the whole. Lines might be thrown in for effect, but are not well considered in terms of deeper meaning. So at 5:50, a little miracle, to describe the erupting spring. This line does a lot of things at the same time. On the surface, it links water to religion and therefore to Ephraim's iconographic appearance and pose when he meets Daniel, but it also sets the tone for various Spanish magical realism elements, such as the literal miracle of the midpoint Deus Ex Machina. It also foreshadows the key moral choice as he has at 30 minutes. As we come to know, this water supply is not a miracle, and as such is key to the theme of water as resource and life in this season. At 8 minutes, Lola says he's rotting, functioning to indicate a converging of internal and external arc, as with the earlier zombie chase mirroring. The ultimate payoff or payoffs in the last scene of the episode fantastically mirror this early excision scene as Lola comes to function as a daughter surrogate, the one character needed to break the deadlock in his mind and allow him to excise the rot of moral corruption with his final heel face character turn. At 10:33, Ephraim, with this holy unction and his tender mercy, pouring the spirits, and at 10:36, may the Lord pardon all your sins. We will look later at how this clarifies the religious symbolism from the angle of writer intent, as this specific ritual has importance that would not be open to the average viewer. Once we have the specific description of this ritual, we see the writer intent and a thematic riffing on confession and atonement. At 10:50, Daniel asks, "Did you used to be a priest?" At this point in the episode, this question appears at surface level to be simple curiosity, but we find out that Daniel feels he needs the services of a priest for confession and forgiveness, which I'll expand on in the following video on religion. At 12 minutes, Daniel to Ephraim, "You've been very kind to me, Ephraim." A huge foreshadowing here, very deep, very satisfying. A payoff to this exchange later when multiple people have let Daniel in and have suffered for it, with Daniel compared to a dog in the final lines. Daniel, when was the last time a professional cut your hair? This very soft side to Daniel, via his barber persona, inverts the officer identity and completely inverts the use of tools on Ephraim in the last minutes of the episode. This indicates how terrifyingly split and compartmentalized Daniel's personality is. At 12:47, a mirror is held up to both men, allowing the line at 12:50. "It had been a while since I saw myself." Ephraim's oblique reference, beyond the obvious, serves many functions here, but echoes Daniel's struggle to choose between his two identities in this new post-apocalyptic world and gives the literal use of a mirror deeper meaning. At 13:05, Ephraim, almost like a lover, "So, what time are you going to sneak out on me?" This intimate, almost a fete or camp exchange helps solidify the bond of mutual need and hammers home the power of the later betrayal and mirrored inversion. I don't know much, but I do know something about running. Of course, we know by now that Daniel is running from his past in El Salvador and towards his daughter Ophelia being a victim in Shakespeare's Hamlet of male plotting madness and rage. This line suggests a mirroring of Ephraim and Daniel's backstory. At 13:15, Ephraim, "And something is rotting in you, far worse than your leg." This is close to being an on-the-nose statement, but it's crucial to point out that it occurs later than the first excision scene, not before it. As such, it could be said to clarify the earlier scene. A decent debate would be on how much this line is necessary and how it could have been rewritten to maintain the idea of the viewer doing the work rather than being handed the thematic point on a platter. 13:20, Daniel, "I'm not a good man, I've done terrible things. I'm afraid it's time to pay my debts." So here, this is a line that again serves multiple functions. We finally see that Daniel's question of Ephraim about being a priest is not just a throwaway line. Daniel still has some residual religion and morality in him. As we will see with the later video on religious symbolism, Ephraim's character function has a specific meaning for a religious subject wishing to atone for something, but Daniel worries he cannot atone and must be punished. This is a consistent feeling with those individuals who have suffered a moral injury, something I covered in previous lectures. As a moral form of trauma, moral injury would take us into the territory of religion and atonement. Ephraim, what did you do? Daniel, I've killed many people. The ease with which he shares this information contrasts not only with his exchange later with Dante, but demonstrates a mirroring and differentiation to information extracted through torture, such as with Ephraim's interrogation. Ephraim, how many? Daniel, he doesn't really hesitate too long, maybe 4 seconds. 96. This swift delivery without a pain expression reinforces the intimate scene, with Ephraim as a priest hearing confession, yet the comfort he experiences in delivering the number to Ephraim suggests an emotional compartmentalization in opposition to the one victim that really matters, Ophelia. With yet more mirroring and inversion, there is absolutely no need on Ephraim's part to extract this confession. It comes easily, unlike the torture scene. There, later, Ephraim makes a distinction to the viewer between empirical truth and moral truth. He can claim to have nothing to confess on a moral basis, despite the fact he's part of Lola's enterprise. This earlier mirror confession scene also signals that although he has cut himself off emotionally from them, the nature of Daniel's killings were intimate and specific. He literally carries the number, important in terms of moral injury. Referring back to my earlier lecture, Jonathan Shea makes a distinction between door gunners and snipers in comparison to general ground troops. The first category tend to actually see every kill, which leads to a greater possibility of moral injury, as there is less anonymity with each kill, as seems to be the case with Daniel. Death by torture would appear to be yet another level up in terms of moral injury and intimacy. 14 minutes Ephraim, but that's not what's weighing on you. We can assume Ephraim guesses this due to the way Daniel delivers the line stroke number 96. The one of Ophelia weighs much heavier than the 96, perhaps because he had compartmentalized his officer identity away with that self and backstory. Daniel then drinks the spirits after refusing earlier. He describes leaving El Salvador for USA as new life, new country. The officer became a barber. Refer back to my earlier lecture for this one. My daughter, she grew up beside me and I never told her the truth. Daniel indicates here that having to sustain the false persona of the barber was itself traumatic. 1440 Ephraim, you were right to keep it from her, that burden was yours. This is ironic, as the priest's function in confession is in part to remove the burden, which we will return to in the section on religion and Ephraim's rituals. Daniel reveals it's his daughter he's looking for and how he essentially had a breakdown, which resulted in fact in Daniel yet again being the proverbial dog that bites the hand that feeds him. I woke up in a fire, very phoenix-like we'd say, and suggestive of a transition to a new persona, and hellish, indicating this travel from fire to water. I was trapped, I was burning. I don't know how, but I got out. Here we have a small indicator that although he believes he is damned, he is in fact favoured by his God, perhaps. 1613. I don't know if I burned my daughter alive. Ephraim, how can you not know? 1623. So here we see, yes, again, this is written as an intimate confession scene. Daniel, forgive me, like you forgive those things out there, forgive me too. We now see how the mirroring stacks up throughout Daniel versus a walker and the function Daniel has been thinking about for Ephraim after he witnessed the rituals. He wants forgiveness and release. Ephraim, but old man, who am I to forgive you? This is great as it signals the issue very specific to moral injury, that fundamentally you cannot forgive yourself, but that is what you need to see yourself as an individual who is not morally corrupt. Please forgive me. 1648 Ephraim, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is there's nobody left in this world to judge you. Again, normally a great relief, but not in moral injury. The bad news, Ephraim falls asleep with thunder rolling. So Daniel tenderly strokes Ephraim's head after putting blankets on him, an act of tenderness that again makes the later torture scene more powerful. 1839, with arms out, looking up, Holy Mary, Mother of God. If we were to be very surface level for our reading, we could say that Daniel is actually asking for a Deus Ex Machina intervention from his God, or Mother of his God, as she features in Catholicism. In fact, Daniel is resigning himself to his fate and is really asking for moral redemption. The magical realist event that then occurs is akin to his God giving him a second material attempt at redemption, which he does finally, with yet more moral failings on the way. He does achieve it. At 21 minutes, the moral problem unifying the season, Daniel asks why everyone is dying of thirst if the dam works. Municipal Dante Esquivel is distributing his way. We can't avoid political analysis here, but I don't see this as heavy-handed. Although we can see a comment on the way men revert to primitive self-interest in a post-apocalyptic world. There have been some cases in the USA, in particular, of water being siphoned off from a natural habitat to service a predominantly wealthy white demographic in an artificial human settlement, such as in Nevada. In many of these cases, like Dante here, a previously free resource is taken, monopolised and sold for redistribution. At 21:30, Lola, today's the first day you've ever seen me in your life. So the hero, our protagonist, is resurrected into yet another identity, janitor, though a short-lived occupation. At 21:35, Lola, you came to ask, to beg for work, am I clear? And Daniel says, like water. So it's important that Daniel did not have to say this. Crystal would be an orthodox simile, but stating the clarity of water speaks to its purity, which is part of its religious import. At 26 minutes, Dante, how many communists did you kill? Funnily, Daniel's past trauma is now a badge of honour, with Dante fully embracing this officer persona. Daniel, I lost count. Lola looks over as if to say, who are you? Daniel does not offer the easy confession he did to Ephraim, possibly due to the inherent danger, of course, of the situation. We know that he didn't lose count, but he's indicating to Dante that those victims did not matter. But in this conversation, they matter less in a very different way to the confession of the number with Ephraim. This is a significant plot turn. We have a guest mirroring Ephraim's invitation. In multiple cultures, we have the idea of generosity towards a guest. This can be extreme, like the case of Pashtun Wali, as depicted in the movie Lone Survivor. In this case, the Pashtun tribe who took in the Navy SEAL Marcus Luttrell were honour bound by the ancient code of Pashtun Wali to protect their guests from the Taliban. But with Dante, his hospitality is all about self-interest. 26:55, Dante. This may be the apocalypse, but it's not communism. Again, as we see this drama played over and over again in post-apocalyptic narratives, in which the tendency is for men to fall into an extreme form of barbaric winner-takes-all Darwinian competition. 27:03, tell me, officer, what do you want? What do you need? We are now mirroring the confession between Ephraim and Daniel, but spiritual versus material need. Dante is an inversion of Ephraim in what he offers, material reward versus spiritual redemption. Dante, please speak freely. Daniel, could you lend me a jeep? He wants to find Ophelia and desires absolution or atonement. A jeep? I'm looking for someone. What are you going to do out there? A man of your talents deserves more. Dante, stay here, help me, and if you solve my problem, I'll give you a place worthy of your stature. You have my word. So this hand offered mirrors Ephraim's, a handout from the man who restricts water, and earlier a handout from the man who gives it. We will look at these offered hands in the next video on mirroring. At 31:07, we have this paternal mirror for Daniel of Ophelia, when Daniel says to Lola, I did it to protect you. And we also have some foreshadowing of Lola as a final emotional catalyst. At 31:15, Lola replies with the utilitarian, selfless argument, if I stop running water, they'll die, all of them, not from bites and not from gunshots, of thirst. And Daniel assures her, then they'll find you. And when they do, there won't be anything I can do to help you. Lola, Dante is right, this place is perfect for you. You're a thug, go get your prize, thug. Lola is doing exactly what he feared Ophelia would do if she found out about his true identity, twisting the knife in the wound of his moral injury, being disgusted by his true self as he is. Daniel, I warned you, do what you want, just don't ask me to save people who are already dead. Now this line again mirrors the scene with Ephraim, you are dying, and Lola responded to Ephraim that he would die. It is mirrored but also inverted, as Daniel seemed doomed initially, but they acted to save him nevertheless. 34:25, Daniel to Strand. I don't believe you'd say anything to save your life. This mirrors Daniel's fake inquisition of a friend later and echoes the theme in the capsule episode of religion, confession and torture, both emotional and physical. Daniel mirrors back Lola's distrust onto Strand with almost the same line. You're a snake, this place is perfect for you. So we have a mirroring of Daniel and Strand's character and in fact a foreshadowing of the season finale. Ophelia is dead, her father is dead, and so are you. Again, like he is in Dante's Inferno, not actually dead, but between life and death, between a dead barber and a living officer. Then Strand shouts, mirroring Lola on a frame, I saved your life, I saved her life, you owe me. Daniel is a character routinely shown generosity who, as Dante indicates, is like a dog, a rabid dog who bites the hand that feeds. 36:14 secretly to a frame. If you talk, they'll kill you, and then her. If you don't talk, I'm going to kill you. I can only offer to kill you as fast as I can. So the kindest reward Daniel can offer to a friend's previous hospitality is to kill his friend quickly. A friend, those options aren't options, brother. A friend clarifies that in fact Daniel is just pretending to be kind. Daniel, forgive me, an eerie callback now to the earlier request for forgiveness, but this time very personal. A friend again? This is an almost hilariously light moment for a scene of this potential savagery, but rather than being a tone problem, it reminds us of the mirrored confession scene earlier with its human-to-human intimacy. We now also mirror Daniel's confession earlier when he cries at Ephraim, confess, confess. And when Ephraim states, I don't have anything to confess, this lie actually reveals the truth of his character as noble and in moral opposition to Daniel, a mirror and inversion. The reason this torture scene payoff is so satisfying is that it can only occur truthfully in a character like Daniel who is so emotionally compartmentalized by moral injury. Additionally, the setups have been so sophisticated and numerous. We have just had at 34 minutes, only 2 minutes before, one character who Daniel believes will confess anything to save his own life, and we now have a friend who is a mirror inversion who we feel sure will say nothing of a compromising nature in order to save Lola and even possibly Daniel. This last point, that Ephraim is unlikely to make a clumsy attempt to compromise Daniel, amplifies Ephraim's earlier kindness, and the entire torture scene here mirrors and often inverts the intimate confession scene in Ephraim's meagre home. At 39 minutes, the final scene, a hood is removed, the sun mirroring Daniel's earlier coming to in Lola's apartment. With the line let them see, we could say at a stretch that the similar light in the earlier rot excision scene indicates that Alan Page is mirroring the two possible scenarios in which both Daniel and Lola face a terrible fate. What we are letting all these characters see is the final reveal of Daniel's character and the fatal results of that character. Dante's final line, mirroring the actions of Ephraim, I let you in, I pulled you off the street, you'll always be a goddamn dog. Daniel then kneels before Lola as in the Deus Ex Machina. This is essentially a Forgive Me 3-beat over the course of the episode, which we'll look at in the next video on mirroring. Lola extends her hand, he takes it, cut to black.